Awesome.
Hey everybody, it is Shayna Rattler. Welcome back to yet another episode of a God Shift podcast. Like we do every time, in case this is your first time, every time I welcome you in, I have a favor to ask. Yes, that's right. I ask you to do something as soon as you get on the line. If you will, do me a favor and take a screenshot of wherever it is that you are listening to this podcast. And when you take that screenshot, I would love if you would post it on your social media and tag us at a God Shift, because it just helps to get this message into the hands of more people that may need to understand how they too can embrace disruption, collide with God's purpose, and enter into another level of destiny that I believe is waiting for all of us. So if you would do that for me, I would appreciate it. So I am going to start by reading my guest bio, and then we will find out a little bit more about him, and then we will get into his God shift journey. So here we go. Raised in the inner cities of Baltimore and Jacksonville, Rodney is the son of a hardworking single mother. Because his father often abused substance abuse, the family spent time in a homeless shelter and endured poverty and domestic abuse. Despite this adversity, Rodney still earned a bachelor's degree in psychology from the Johns Hopkins University and a master's in nonprofit management from Capella University. He will complete the educational leadership doctorate from Morgan State in the fall of 2023. Rodney has assisted numerous companies with team building, communication, data evaluation, and program development. His workshops and seminars are among the most popular in the United States and abroad. Everybody, welcome to the show, Rodney Burris.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, guys. So, guys, I just want you to know I've been referring to our host as Dr. Shayna. So I may say that a few times. Full warning, Dr. Shayna, I'm so happy to be on your show with you, talking with you about God's goodness and connecting with our people. Thank you for having me so much.
Well, thank you so much for being there. And y'all feel free to ignore that doctor part if he lets it slip out, that Freudian slip. So, Rodney, I read your official bio, but tell us a little bit more about what it is that you do. How do you play in the earth?
Right. So I think one of the biggest things about me is, so my wife has a lot of kids, right? Let's just start there. My wife has so we have 5 children, and I know
Your wife has a lot of kids.
Yes, she does. And something. Well, so we have 5. We have 16-year-olds, 14-year-old. Aaliyah and Anthony are 16. Those are my twins. You would think that we would be done, right? You got a boy and a girl. Should be finished, but crazy people do crazy things. So then we have a 14-year-old son. His name is Micah. He's a boxer. He's a taekwondo guy. He's a wrestler. So he loves all of those combat sports. Under him, 2 years following that is Jada. So you got 16, 14, 12. Jada's a TikToker. Jada's a ballerina. Jada is modern dance, tap, jazz. Like, she's just fully immersed. She was in the Harlem School of something for dance, but COVID kind of knocked that out. She was supposed to be in New York for a few weeks last year. And so now we live in Baltimore, and she attends a dance program for youth that's very renowned, and it's at the Baltimore School of the Arts, which has been the site for movies like Step Up and other dance movies. Jada Pinkett went there, Tupac went there. So, she's in that school and that whole environment. And then we were good, right? You got 2 boys, you got 2 girls, 16, 14, 12. And then somebody left the gate open and we got a 7-year-old, right? So, story of my life. Got a 7-year-old.
This is funny. So his wife has a lot of kids and somebody left the gate.
Thank you, Dr. Shayna. I knew you would get it. I knew you would understand my pain.
Yeah. So talk to us about what you do.
So I'm a leadership development trainer. In a nutshell, what that means, managers want to be able to fire everybody sometimes, right?
Oh, wow.
Right? Just kind of just wipe the slate clean and have a fresh start. But we can't often do that. And so we are in this new normal. It's kind of like emerging kind of post-COVID. What is this life looking like? We need people to adjust and transition and level up. But we often are working with our same people or even a reduced staff. So what do we do? How do we make, there's a phrase, Shayna, it's called changing the tires while the car is moving. Like, how do you do that? Leadership development training. right? And so the ability often to level up, they wouldn't have been hired if they didn't know how to do the work. So a lot of times the adjustments are internal, are interpersonal, are emotional, are mental, right? And I can share in our space, I'm not always at liberty if I'm in universities or corporate settings to speak about it from a spiritual, lens, but a lot of times people are bound up with stuff that they have never been delivered from, right?
Yeah.
And so in order to actually be effective and to move forward, they need some sort of deliverance, right? Now, I would love to be able to, have a big old line down the middle of the, corporate meeting room and, somebody hold the baby and we pray for folks. Can't always do that, right? And so being able to go in and help us address and attack mindsets and strongholds in a way that's palatable for the setting, right? And then leave up out of there with a template and a framework for moving forward and then follow up is kind of what I do. And it has had phenomenal return on investments for companies, increased in the ratios between profit and loss, happier work-life balance, workplace morale. So that's what I do. And it has been such a huge boost to a lot of organizations, especially in this period. And I
Yeah.
love what I do, Shayna. It feels like life and is life-giving.
I love it. So speaking of life, let's get into
Yes.
your God shift journey. So
Yes.
for context for the conversation,
Mhm.
in case that you are listening to this podcast for the first time, I hope it's not the first time. Shame on you if it's the first time. But my definition of a God shift is anytime a disruption in your life
Mm.
collides with God's purpose and moves you into a greater destiny. That's where more expectancy is. That's where more possibility is. And I believe that God uses this disruption and he uses these unexpected circumstances to get our attention.
Yeah.
The question is, are we going to figure out what it is that he wants us to see, what he wants us
Mhm.
to learn, and
Mhm.
sometimes more importantly, where it is that he needs us next? So, can you
Yes.
describe a time in your life that God has used some form of unexpected circumstance?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've had so many. The one that really jumped out when you just kind of was talking about this, Shayna, I remember, so I've been self-employed and working as a consultant in this space for about 15 years.
Mhm.
And a few years ago, a friend of mine was a high level executive at a major nonprofit here in Baltimore. And she gave me a call. She was like, Rodney, I want you to join my team. I know you do your own thing, but we're actually trying to shift some things. And I think you could be great to help us, but it's going to be for a targeted project. Get you in, get you out. We'll move the needle. It'll be great, right? And at the time, I was kind of open to experiencing something else. Kind of being self-employed and generating your own income is a grind at times.
Mhm.
And so I was like, okay, I'm willing to try it out. Shane, I got in there and I drank the Kool-Aid. I became a company man. I saw the vision. I was like, we got to do this. And I'm seeing myself there for years and years and years. And not only that, I helped them achieve what we were talking about, but I also was messing up in very small ways that I was embarrassed about, if I could just be honest, right?
Give
For
me an
so
example.
little things like, oh, don't make me confront myself, Shayna. Um, Small things like mismanaging calendar blocks. And so now I got two or three or four or five different people showing up to a meeting that's not existing, or they showing up at different times. But I was pulled in not as a lower level worker, I had staff under me. So that affects a team, that affects the people that they are overseeing. And it just looked bad. I did that 100 times, right?
Yeah.
Once or twice, maybe. Five, seven, nine times, it's a problem.
Yeah. And
I
is
would,
it, before you go on, is
yeah.
it safe to assume that that's not typically your character, not typically how you would roll?
No, not only is it not typically my character, I'm a quick learner, right? But I've been in positions where a lot of the details about my movement are handled by people that I bring in, assistants
Sure.
and things of that nature. Well, in that role, it was on me to do, right? So that was one part. Another part, Shayna, um, embarrassingly enough, we would be in these meetings, these big strategy meetings, talking about all of this stuff, and I would offer my insight, and it was 70-80% like, wow, we need to do that. And then 20%, where is this guy? Like, what are
Mhm.
you talking about? And that's because it just felt like I was always a step behind. And I never was able to account for that.
Yeah.
It always just felt like I was a step behind. And so she would pull me to the side, like, dude, you're in Japan. Like, what are you doing? Like, where are you? And I'm like, I thought we were talking about the same stuff. There's this funny meme, Shayna. Beyonce, you kind of got some Beyonce going on anyway. There's this meme of Beyonce, and she has this face like, like, oops, like, did I do that? Kind of like Steve Urkel. And the words above says, when the whole class is arguing if it's 23 or 24, and you got 646.
Right.
That was me, right? They're arguing about 23, 24, and I'm way off, right? So that happened more times than I care to even own, but it's my truth. And so, but where I won big. And
Mm.
so it wasn't questioned that, like, so for example, they were trying to hit a particular metric for some years and they never hit it, but they never measured it. So one of the simple things I put into place was to help them measure. This gets into the God shift. So I helped them achieve the goal, right? I offered a restructuring of how the organization should go about the work for a particular team. And I started working really closely with the CEO.
Okay.
So all of those things happened all together. I was coming up to the end of my initial contract term with them. And they were like, yeah, you actually have helped us do these things. And the CEO pulled me to the side. She was like, Rodney, I don't know what else to do with you here.
Wow.
She was like, you could do my job. I don't know where else. I was like, no. I'm fine. I'll just stay on the team and help out because I see the vision. She's like, okay, well, I want you to land well, so we'll extend the contract, but I don't know what else for you to do. Come
Sure.
the end of that extension, nice conversation, great rapport, but we don't really have anything. They offered me a lesser role,
Mhm.
lesser, and it offended me, if I can be honest. It offended my little sensibilities. And so I decided to get out of there. And I was going for a jog, Shayna, here in Baltimore. That beautiful city behind me is Baltimore, Maryland. And I was going for a jog in Baltimore where I live. And I kind of heard God speaking to me, but for me, and I know he deals with all of us in similar but distinct ways.
Sure.
For me, Shayna, the conversation felt like a feeling. So the conversation felt like a feeling, if that
Yeah.
makes any sense at all, right?
It does make sense.
Okay, all right. So the feeling that I was getting was, let me take a step back. I wanted to level up what I was doing, working with teams globally. So I've been to a lot of our states. I've done a lot of work with a lot of schools and corporations and nonprofits and companies. But I felt when I was a little boy, my soul felt, this is going to sound corny, but I feel safe here with you, Dr. Shayna. So Care Bears, like how they would shine this light out of their
Yeah.
belly.
Yeah.
When I was a little kid, it's like I felt that. Like
Wow.
I felt, so it came from out of me, behind me, but it shined through me. Now we know that's the Holy Spirit, that's God, whatever it is, right? I knew enough to know, but if I had to kind of describe it to somebody, that's what it felt like.
Right.
And it always felt touching the world, like
Yeah.
touching, not localized, not a laser. And
Yeah.
so,
So connect the dots for me, Rodney, because what I'm curious is, so as a child, you have this feeling, you have a
yes,
conversation with God that is more like a feeling. You're in this
yes,
contract that is not really what it is that you typically do on the side.
couldn't have
So
been.
how was God using these circumstances to get your attention?
So here's the shift. So I always go for my exercises and I go for jogs and runs and I speak affirmations back to God. Like I feel like he gives me words, I give them back to him, right? Give me the words, I give. So one of the things was being grateful for being a national and international leadership development trainer, best-selling author, and inspirational speaker, right? Being
Hmm.
grateful for it as if it's already happened.
Sure.
Those things, right? So I remember after they let me go, and I'm jogging around Lake Montebello here in Baltimore, And it was like, how in the world you going to be international and you got to punch somebody's clock? I was like, wow, I don't know how I'm going to be international and I have to check in and punch a clock. And then that harkened back to another conversation I had where a friend of mine said, Rodney, I told him I couldn't work out. We were running track. And I told him I couldn't run because I was hurting real bad. And he was like, bro, are you injured or are you sore? And I was like, what are you talking about? I'm hurt. I can't go to practice. And what are you talking about? He was like, no, are you injured or are you sore? Because if you're injured, you need to rehabilitate. You need to wrap that. It needs medical attention. But if you're sore, that just means your workout is working.
Right.
And when I was running around and I heard God say, how you going to be international? And you got to check in. You got to punch a clock. And I heard that whole conversation replay. You're not injured. You're hurting, true.
Sure.
Hurt is not an injury. What you've been speaking, this shifting, it looked like it was a mess up. It looked like it was meant to knock you down. It looked like the people who came against you. It looked like you got kicked out and didn't know, but your workout was working. The words that you were speaking were planting seeds and they're coming back. And you got to learn how to see the good in it. And that was the whole feeling in that conversation when I was taking that jog with God that helped me shift into like this newness.
Right. So he's using this circumstance
Yes.
to get your attention. And
yes.
So what do you believe it is that he was either trying to get you to see or what it is that he was trying to get you to learn?
I can get in my own way. Mm-hmm. And I know that's true for a bunch of us, but I'm gonna make it personal, right? And I'm gonna take it out of cliche and I'm gonna talk about my big kid self. So I have had a few wins in my life, which is why the young lady felt she could call me and say, hey, I want to hire you to help me do this big thing that we've never done before. Well, when you have a few wins and things seem to line up for you, sometimes you lose the ability to listen to nudges, to intuition, to your gut, to your subconscious. The Bible calls it the still small voice. Mm-hmm. And so whenever you lose that, one or two things can happen. God can let you go like, okay, go ahead. No, go ahead. And then whatever happens out of that happens and you deal with those consequences. Or he chastens who he loves, right? He kind of draws us back in. And so I think for me, I wasn't listening. And I think I wasn't paying attention to the still small direction. And I think that I was operating out of a I know what I know space as opposed to being led.
Right.
And missing the fine distinction between confidence and arrogance, because you can be confident and still have humility and humbleness in you, but you can't be arrogant and be led, right? And so right. I don't think that God wants us to be mealy mouth and like, I don't really know, because he fearfully and wonderfully made us. But at the same time, that confidence needs to be tempered by obedience. And maybe Shayna, maybe I was moving in gross disobedience, maybe. But I think that for me, I really think it was like that subtlety, the fineness of you're not too far off, but if I let you keep going, you won't get to where I want you.
So how did you respond?
Well, the first thing I did was I called that friend of mine. I called two people. I called the friend of mine who told me about the workout is working and the injury. And I was like, bro, look what I just tied in, right? So that was a great invigorating convo. And then I called that young lady who invited me in and hired me for the organization. And I told her, thank you, right? And that was hard. That was hard because I was offended when I left.
Sure.
So that took some humility to do, but it felt right. And I was bucking against it. I was like, I ain't doing that. I just be happy for myself, right? Thank God by myself in my closet. So then I started listening. Well, since then, I have I've been in schools in South Africa, did a little small talk in Costa Rica, been to Peru. I have a 10-day conference coming up in Ghana later on this year. I'm going to be speaking life and encouraging people as we move around to about 4 or 5 different cities there. There's a publishing house in London that right now we're under contract. We're reviewing how we're going to do distribution across the United Kingdom and across Europe for one of my books, which is probably going to be the start of the series. And all of that came after my experience at this nonprofit.
Right.
After me getting out of there. And Shayna, when they let me go, I was so hurt. But God was shifting me so that I wouldn't miss it, so that I could be what that little boy saw shining through his belly, so I can walk in it and fulfill it. And I wouldn't have been able to do it playing it small. I didn't realize that.
So let me ask you a question. One of the things that I feel like I know for sure is that when we find ourselves in the type of situation that you're describing,
Yes.
do I stay on the same path? Do I go in a new direction?
Yes.
This thing that I used to be able to do well, I'm
Right,
now
right,
touching things and they're turning to dirt instead of gold, right?
right.
And so I believe that it's very important that we elevate God's position in our lives when we
Yes.
find ourselves in this disruption. In your opinion, is that important? If so, why?
It is the only thing. It is the only thing. It's like breathing. There's a beautiful song by Michael W. Smith, and he has a song, and the words are, "This is the air I breathe."
Mhm.
And that, like, it doesn't get more fundamental than that. Like, you can have all of the money, you can have all of the access, all of the networks, all the relationships. If you can't breathe, you don't have that stuff. You don't have anything.
Right.
And so what I started doing was very intentionally spending time in the morning. And I know, see, Shayna, and I know you get this, right? But the stuff that helps us move forward in God, in life, based on how he set things up, they're so simple, right? That the concepts are not tough. Living them day to day sometimes is challenging for the different reasons, but the actual things are so simple. And so literally spending time in the morning to reconnect,
Yeah.
be guided, and be humble and listen. And I used to think, and there's some validity to this. I'm having a confluence of a whole bunch of thoughts at the same time. Sometimes when you spend that time with God, you have random thoughts that run through your mind, right? Random thoughts, and it feels like a distraction. Sometimes that's inspiration. Sometimes it is only then that you sat down to listen that it's like, oh, that, and it lays out and it makes
Right.
sense. And so I started keeping paper with me, right? And while I'm sitting up, so for me, Shayna, my morning time, that running around that I tell you, that exercise, that drinking water, all happens together. So I'm out at Lake Montebello, I'm jogging around the lake, I'm doing crunches and sit-ups, and I have paper with me that I keep in my little hoodie in my pocket, and I pull it out and I scratch the most chicken scratchiest stuff because I can't do full hand, right? But it's, oh yeah, I gotta remember. Oh yeah, because the clarity. There's a
Right.
scripture in the Bible that talks about waking you up early in the morning to give you the tongue of the learned. You know what I mean? And so just kind of really being guided in the pureness of obedience in the morning. If we did a little bit more of that, 2 minutes more, 10 minutes more, 20 minutes more, like some of us don't have the setup either internally or externally to do an hour and a
Yeah.
half first thing in the morning. But if we did 3 or 4 minutes, it is akin to I believe, if I may submit this, Shane, I think it's akin to the woman giving that little old offering in that parable.
Yeah.
It wasn't a whole lot, but it came from her heart in that moment. If we did that, increase follows that obedience.
I agree. I agree. So tell me, where can people find you?
Yes, yes. So my name is Rodney C. Burris. Everything about me across social media is Rodney C. Burris. LinkedIn, you'll get to see part of my history and some of the organizations that I've worked with. Instagram, I'm very chillaxed, right? Instagram, you're gonna see like some professional stuff, but you're gonna see me, hanging with friends and running around and all that kind of stuff. So Instagram is also Rodney C. Burris. Facebook, all of the other ones, Twitter, I put out these like little smart guy inspirational moments like, I wrote that down while I was jogging. Let me share that. So if you're into that sort of thing, Twitter'll be great for you for that. But yeah, Rodney C. Burris, my website is rodneycburris.com. And if anybody wanted to ever email me, info@rodneycburris would be the way to go.
Awesome. And I will make sure that all of that is in the show notes. And is there anything that you would like to offer the audience in case they might want to go further with you?
Yes, so I have a book.
Okay.
And the book I did came from my mom. It's about breaking cycles and creating better habits. And it parallels how riding a bike is literally like experiencing life. And so the bicycle's handlebars allow you to steer. Well, if I'm in a situation in life that I don't have control, I might want to get out of that repetitive cycle, that bicycle over and over again and run, right? Run
Mhm.
with passion. The pedals give us our drive, what we love to do. So if I'm going through something over and over again, same job, same relationship type, same this, same that, and I don't love it. It's draining me. I don't have the passion, the pedaling for it. I would do better to get off of that and run. So the book kind of beautifully inserts stories from my life. I had to change some of the names, so nobody come and fight me later, Shayna. But just parallels that whole analogy and plays it out. It's called Get Off the Cycle and Run. I have a shorter version for free, and it's called Get Off the Cycle and Sprint, right? So it's kind of play with the run to the sprint. It's just the bullets, all of the elaborate stories are taken out of there. And I give that for free in an ebook version. If anybody would like that, if you guys go to my website and put your name in, and or if you inbox me across social media and put hashtag sprint, so for Get Off the Cycle and Sprint, I'll have my folks send that over in e-copy form. So that would be my gift to us.
Awesome. Perfect. And again, I will make sure that those links are in the episode show notes as well, so that nobody has to try to remember. Was it Rodney? Was it C? Does it have an E? Does it have, what is it? All they have to do is just click the link. So thank you so much for being here and sharing your journey with my listeners. I'm sure someone is going to see themselves in your story and realize that there's hope on the other side. And again, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you so much for having me.
Everyone, thank you so much for listening to a God Shift podcast, and I pray that you will listen to next week's episode as well. Have a great day. Bye bye.